Welcome, dear listener, to Right Here, Right Queer. This is Noah Hawthorne with A.K. Mulford and K. Elle Morrison. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm very glad to have you guys here today. I know you have a new book coming out, but which of your books are you most excited to talk about and why?
Excited to talk about Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist.
Like this through the silence, wondering which one of us was gonna talk first. We co-authored a book together that's coming out on September 3rd, and it's called Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist, and we're super excited about it.
And what made you decide that you wanted to write a book together?
We've actually talked about it for a really, really long time, but last year I had a cover that I had bought from a designer and I really wanted to use it because I had had it for a couple of years and I was like, I want to do something. It looks like, could be like a smutty mountain town kind of thing. So I was spitballing with some other author friends and had kind of come up with this idea of doing like a cozy small town thing. And I had come up with the title Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist because it sounded really funny. It wasn't actually the first title, like there was a whole bunch of them. And then I went to Allie and was telling them, I was like, okay, so there's this mountain town and this vampire, and he falls in love with the girl that works at the coffee shop, and then there's a grisly murder. And then Allie gently reminded me, you can't have a grisly murder in a rom-com. And I was like, oh, right.
Tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know that genre at all. So then we kind of got talking and we were talking about the other books in the series that I kind of had ideas for. But really, what I had was the title. And Allie and I talked about it more and we were bouncing back ideas. And it was like a little later on that Allie was like, really want to write something like that. That would be so cool. That's such a fun project. And I was like, we should just do it together. And Allie was like, oh, thank God.
I really wanted to do it.
Oh, that's great.
So that's kind of how it started, but it really kind of kicked off on its own thing. We got a chance to workshop it and come down to the actual story because also Allie was like, what if it's sapphic? And I was like, what if it's sapphic?
Yes, we need all the sapphic stories.
Yes. Now it's perfect. It's a perfect like combination of both of our brains and years of friendship that we've had. And yeah.
Yeah, we really have like a similar sense of humor, and through like the writing of it, we realized like we couldn't tell who had written like which jokes. We defy anyone to be able to pick up a line and say who wrote it because it really is like even we don't know.
So do you work on like does one of you do a chapter and then the other one reads it? Do you each do a character or how does that work?
Yeah, we kind of had like this really meet cute, almost like authoring meet cute, where I was saying how I really love like fast drafting. I love the kind of first brain dump doc of a book. And Kate was like, I hate doing the first draft, but I love the revisions and the process of making it into like something beautiful once there's words on the page and adding chapters and changing things and like molding it into a book. And I'm like, I hate that part. And so we just kind of like slow-mo looked at each other and we're like, we should write a book together. And so that's kind of what our writing process was hot potatoing it back and forth to each other. And it was so great. I think it's the fastest I've ever written a book because we were both playing to our strengths. We were both doing the bits that we liked doing the most. So we had a really big brainstorm first of what we wanted the story to be and picked out the names and all of the things. And then I got to work doing like the first kind of iteration of a fast draft where there was lots of like, make this better or like add a scene here. I didn't even need to really say it, to be honest, because Kate knows me so well that like she just like jumped in and put the bits that she knew was missing into the story. So, and throughout the fast drafting process too, I was messaging her going like, what should we do about this? Or who do you think should have this thing? And so we were kind of brainstorming right the way along. And then she took it and turned it into like this kind of gorgeous version of it started to look like a book after she got it back to me. And then we kind of brainstormed from there, kind of doing the last edits before it went off to the editor. So it was a really fun, like really joyful writing process.
It was also fun when we got to that last bit. We both had like ideas for like scenes that we felt like really needed to be in there. And the one that Allie came up with I don't want to give spoilers, but the one that Allie came up with was super sweet and romantic and like perfect moment. And it's definitely one of like my favorite moments.
So you can still be surprised by your own work, you know?
Yeah, so it was really nice to like, not only do we both really care about the book, but we both had like ideas to like make it better all the way up until the end, where we're like, oh yeah, we have to really like put these last two moments in before we send it off to editing. We did go through edits with an editor that I use, that I trust, and Allie took a shot on my editor. And I think it worked out well.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, I can't put out a book unless Caroline has touched it. And then we got to work with someone who we love very, very dearly and have worked with since the beginning, Norma from Norma's Nook.
Norma's Nook editing.
The editing or proofing? Cut this out.
I was proofing, but now she does more editing too, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Norma from Norma's Nook, we absolutely love and adore. So it was really fun to be able to like give that to her and be like, look, we finally did it.
Because she's been proofreading for us since our very first books. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you say this is in a series. There'll be more. You guys will be writing together more?
Well, let's not talk at once. Like,
I'm letting you go first.
you go first. Yes.
The reason I was letting Kate go first is because she's caught me multiple times in the comments replying to ARC readers, telling them too much about what we have planned for the future. KL's the gatekeeper of all of our secrets.
We have plans. There's definitely some people who have guessed what's next. We're ultimately going to fit secret until have covers and things.
Very cool. It gives you the Hallmark feel, but it feels also like Halloween Town, like I'm looking at the cover, and I like how it's a cafe that it's not, it doesn't seem like the typical one.
Yeah, we really wanted to pull from that nostalgia.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can feel like there's Buffy references, there's Gilmore Girls references, Practical Magic, Halloween Town, like a lot of the things that you kind of think of during fall and that kind of cozy season and spooky season. And yeah, hopefully people, so far from ARC readers, have the response has been amazing, and people have really said how kind of nostalgic it feels in a way.
I'm really proud of how we did put those vibes out there. It's not that we didn't, but like the amount of people who have just like nailed it. Every time I see a review and they're like, it puts me right back to Halloween Town. It puts me right into Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow. And I'm like, we nailed this. So like, I'm real proud of us that we like nailed this.
Was it like the 90s and 2000s? Is that the vibes of the Halloween of those years?
Definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah, like town itself really tries to like give you the late 90s, early 2000s feel of like, yes, there's technology, but it's not overrun. Like not everything is all about technology. It's really about experiencing town and like sure, eclectic and everything's doused in Halloween black and orange and but like in a fun way, in a fun like going to a pumpkin patch on a hayride.
So, in addition to that, what was the main message you wanted to get out with this book? Or like, what was your intention with the storytelling with this one?
This is all Allie right now.
I'm the feelings person. I'm the deep meaning person. You see how I immediately jumped in. I was like, let's talk about feelings. But no, I think for me, like the book works on multiple layers where like on one layer, it's like this comfy, cozy kind of, you can read almost in one sitting. It's very like bingeable, sort of fun Halloween-y story. But on the other level, you have characters who are types of representation that you might not have seen in kind of paranormal romance before, or like in this kind of cute, cozy, contemporary world before. Like we really wanted to have these well thought out sapphic characters, one's a lesbian, one's a mask bi character. And I had someone message me about the character of Harlow and say like, I don't see a lot of more kind of mask sapphic bi characters enough, and how cool that was to have her character be that. And also like her character has ADHD and is very forthcoming with that, is like kind of the classic golden retriever to Jordan's black cat energy. And I think that, we don't always get to see that dynamic, and also having two characters kind of break out of the archetypical sort of romance characters. So for us, we wanted it to have like new kinds of representation, new kinds of storytelling in there, but also all of the kind of Halloween cozy fall nostalgia at the same time. So yeah, it was really fun to have the duality of that, and having two characters, kind of at the end of the day, it's about having two characters who kind of learn to love themselves along with learning to love someone else, and being vulnerable and being open to those kind of like connections and being accepted by a new family and all of those things, which I think a lot of us struggle with. So yeah.
That is so beautiful. And I would assume that grief is a topic as well, because we're trying to raise the ex-girlfriend from the dead here. All we have.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like, as someone who's dealt with grief in my own life, like, I think that sometimes grief can be funny and we don't allow ourselves to like kind of let it be, but there is a bit of kind of like dark humor coping that comes with it as well. And so it's like, it's both kind of deeply like sad in some ways, but also kind of lighthearted and funny in other ways. And this character kind of navigating how to process death and how to let someone go, kind of learning how to move on. So there's all of that, but it's done in a very kind of more like, if you've ever seen the show Pushing Daisies, that kind of like, it's dealing with a heavy subject matter like death and murder, but in a very kind of like lighthearted way.
Exactly.
I hate to ask, but do you have a favorite out of the two characters or out of any of them in the book?
Yes. My favorite is Jordan. I just love Jordan so much.
And my favorite is Harlow.
Yeah.
I feel like you're always going to get from Kate. So Kate and I have the like, I'm kind of like a golden retriever mask energy, and she has like the black cat energy. And so I think our like romantic duos always have this kind of grumpy sunshine dynamic, because that's what she and I have.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure. And, I read your books, both of your books, when I very first started reading indie books. And I think you both had just released them as High Mountain Court before it got picked up, and Under the Black Banners. And it's really amazing for me to see how much has changed for both of you. And it also, I have to say, influenced my own like writing journey. Like,
Oh, cool.
seeing how specifically you, Allie, how you started to kind of expand on the characters you included and in your own journey coming out, like it really meant a lot to me, and I know lots of other people. And I think continuing to write those stories really matters. It makes a difference. And I thought it was really cool to see a sapphic story too from you, from both of you together, because you do see them, but not as much as other romances. And I really love that. And I love how it's Hallmark, but how we talked before, a little bit different. And I'm just really excited about it. I just had to fanboy there for a minute because your guys' journey has really been, I've been following it for a while, and I just think it's really cool and inspiring to me, and I think to a lot of other people. So to go back to what you're saying, like that representation really is important, not just to readers, but to authors as well.
Thank you. That means so much to me.
For sure.
Yeah, it was like, it's been something that I've been basically trying to do from the beginning, is write stories where it feels very familiar. Like the story itself, the story structure, the beats, the romance, everything feels very familiar, but with characters that you might not have gotten to see before as the main characters, and putting new people in the driver's seat, and maybe hopefully expanding people's kind of understanding of characters like that, understanding of people, and hopefully, having it be less of a, hurdle for new readers to get over, like realizing, oh yeah, like I will read more books with non-binary main characters. Like I will seek out more stories like this. Like it isn't as like quote unquote different as I thought it would be. And actually I can read stories with characters with they them pronouns and things like that. So for me it was always about like kind of hybridizing like the familiarity of the tropes we know and love with the kind of representation we're like also desperately eager for. And I know for me to like be able to see myself in more stories, and how much it means to me to like get to be that, but also to get to show other authors like you can have your stories with non-binary main characters get picked up in a big book deal. Like it is possible possible to have these stories exist and be supported out there in the world. And I hope more people feel encouraged. It's for me, it's one of those things where it's like we all benefit from more storytellers showing up and telling like their authentic stories in new ways. And I think also like getting to write a sapphic story with your best friend is like pretty awesome too, because I think that a lot of people, a lot of sapphic people, and I don't know, Kale can speak to this too, but like get sort of like discredited if depending on whatever their current relationship is. And, you know, as like two sapphic people, like being able to explore that through storytelling and being able to tell more types of representation and getting to have more kinds of romance out there, I think is really exciting.
Allie's had a lot more experience than I have with telling amazingly beautiful stories like that. Typically, I try to ingrain my writing with LGBTQ and neurospicy things because that's who I am as a person. So when you get a Elle Morrison book, it's just in there. It's not it's not going to be, you know, the main focus possibly. I mean, it definitely has been, but it's just going to be in there as if it's every day to you. And it should be every day to you because everyone has that person that they love that isn't the, you know, Hollywood cis het person.
And I love that. And we do need that kind of, queer norm. It doesn't have to be the main. It can, it both is good. People existing in general is good. It's very nice.
I think that's what really balances Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist also is that we've made it both styles of writing. It is the main focus, but it's also just like normal in the town. There's lots of representation throughout the entire book because that's how we see the world. So,
What about what has inspired you in your writing, either for the cozy contemporary or for your more darker romance? Like, what inspires you?
Usually every book for me kind of starts with one scene or like one idea that I know I want to create, and then it kind of expands from there. So like for Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist, it already had like this great title and this great idea. And then I was like, how funny would it be if like there's a witch who like got drunk and summoned the ghost of her ex-girlfriend?
mhm.
And like, so for me, that was kind of my first hook into the story. And then we kind of created it in the way that we would create our own books, but we had someone to like, instead of bouncing ideas off myself and going, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had this and kind of creating like a dream list sheet of the things I want in a story before I start writing it. We were doing that together. So, and then that just kind of created so many more ideas than I think we would have created individually too. So we were constantly like bouncing ideas off of each other and building off of each other's ideas in this kind of great improvisational sort of way. But yeah, for me, usually I kind of start with like one moment. It could be a really small, intimate moment of like two people saying some heavy stuff to each other, and then it turns into this epic kind of fantasy world from there.
I'm kind of the same where a glint of an idea will like run through my brain of usually is like a really heavy moment. I don't know why do we like this? And it's always like I'm actually working on something that was inspired strictly because someone said final hook and I was like, "Oh my God, guess what?" And it just like blooms from there. I don't know about Allie, but darker stuff tends to come a little later for me, where usually for me is like a spicy scene, and then kind of what forms around it is like a story. And then I have like a wish list of tropes I like really want to write at the time. And so I'll like, oh, what trope fits well with this story? And I just kind of let the story tell me what fits and what doesn't. And then yeah, the dark stuff kind of happens as I'm downloading the information from my brain onto the keyboard.
Yeah, I find that I also have like it's the one you get a one bit of dialogue or one random vague scene, and you're like, oh, I could go with this. I've got something rolling here.
Also, I very often, and I know Allie has done this too, where we've like seen a TikTok. It's like, you know what?
Talk about manifesting, like put it out there if there's stories that you want to hear. Like so often we'll see videos of someone being like, I really wish there was like, you know, more witchy sapphic books or something. And we're like, bet, you know, like done.
There was one. I sent it to Allie months ago. We were already editing, we were already doing stuff, and someone had put out, like, I'm already ready for fall. I want a sapphic witchy love story. And I was like, oh my God, guess what?
So you started off with like the fae fantasy kind of genre, and then A Golden River of Bones, is that correct?
Yep, A River of Golden Bone.
And that one was also fantasy. So what made you do the jump from that to contemporary with the Zookeeping series?
Yeah, I mean, probably my chaotic ADHD mind. But I love fantasy and the paranormal is kind of like my home base. But I, used to be a wildlife rehabilitator and I've worked with a lot of animals in a lot of different countries. And I was like, it would be really fun to kind of put some of these stories to paper and tell some of these anecdotes and fun facts and things. And the first book in that series, She's a Keeper, was it was like exercised out of me. Like I had to write it. It just became a book. Like I don't know what happened. I blacked out and there was a book. And I had so much fun with it. Like it's almost like like a rest day from fantasy in a way, because with contemporary you don't have to explain a lot of things because people already know what it is. Like it already exists in the world. If I say New York City, you know what New York City looks like. I don't have to like go through 10 pages of explaining what this city is. So there's a lot of shorthands and you can make pop culture references. And so it's really fun and kind of lighthearted and a little kind of joyful reprieve after like some of the heavier topics of the fantasy. But then by the time I'm done writing a rom-com, I'm like super ready to get back into the world of fantasy. And I want the more heavy themes and world building and magic systems and more epic kind of storytelling. And then by the time I'm done with that, I'm ready to jump into another rom-com.
That is a very nice way to put it. Like you say, I'm writing like a historical fiction right now, which I find is easier, well, not easier, but it's different from fantasy. It like exercises a different part of your brain. So I definitely know what you mean. And Elle, you have always done fantasy, right? Like right from your first book, it was, Incubus and Fae and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I love the research aspect when it comes to paranormal things. Under the Black Banners was definitely more of like everything spewing out of my brain that I thought would be like a really interesting read and something that I wanted to read and like smutty and like a love project. And then I kind of had an idea for demons, which no surprise, I am a Buffy fan. And so one of my favorite parts of Buffy as a whole series is when they do all the research and they have all these big dusty books and they go through deep dives of the lore of the monsters that they're hunting that week. And so I really just like loved the idea and the process of doing my own research. And so the Princes of Sin happened, months and months of research. Actually, it started with Blood on My Name, which was months and months of demonology and witchcraft and occult research. And some of that stuff just kind of sticks with you. And so moving towards a more like fun rom-com book was easy just because like, oh, I actually already know all these things. All I have to do is fact check and make sure that what we're writing about the witchcraft that these witches are doing works and it's right and the right herbs are being used and such and such. So I am taking a little break from the paranormal next year with a contemporary, but fortunately for me, it's actually not as easy to just jump out of the paranormal, it seems, but I have committed myself to it and it's got to happen. So it's a work in progress. But I think people will still get the same like KL Morrison vibes from it. There just won't be any magic.
Well, it's always nice to switch it up. I'm very excited to see what you come up with.
Thanks. I hope it's good.
It will be. It will be. I already know a lot about it.
It will be. It will be.
And so yeah, I know it will be, but this is why you need a author best friend because you you need to tell each other that your ideas are good sometimes because we're all riddled with self-doubt.
We are. I think it's a lot easier to be like, oh, of course, anything that Ali comes up with is going to be amazing. Like, what do you mean? Of course, they can jump from fantasy to rom-com contemporary. Of course, of course. But then when I look at myself, I'm like, I don't know, man.
I think that about you. The other day we were actually like talking about reviews and KL said something that was just so profoundly true for the author experience, which is like she was looking for a like lower star review, could only find a 3-star, which is awesome. But I'm sure there will be lower ones as the book comes out. But was like, I need to find a 3-star review so I can like see how people really feel. I was like, but the Foreign Crime stars also really feel that way. Like
They
they
do.
Yeah.
all really feel that way.
I do feel that way, and there were so many very.
But it's so true. And I do it too all the time. I'm always like, oh, well, like we're so quick to believe people, when they're like, oh no, it's gonna be bad, or I can't do this, or I can't switch genres, or I whatever, like all of these negative self-talk things. But as soon as it's like you can do it, it's like, oh, you're just being nice.
They're just being so nice. And honestly, like as I read the 3-star review, it was actually really nice.
It was really lovely. Yeah.
Which, we do have like a standing rule that we don't get upset over 3-star or higher reviews. Like you can only, take a moment to be sad if it's like 2-star or lower and it's really mean. But, that's our rule.
Yeah, yeah. There's no crying over 3-star reviews.
Yeah,
That's our rule.
Yeah, 3 stars are still
they
good. They're just,
are.
it wasn't the book for them, or it just was all right, which is fine. Not everything has to be the end all be all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What other advice would you have for authors?
I feel like Kale and I are like the angel and devil on your shows. We have very different advice, but both is like needed. I'm like the very aggressively optimistic cheerleader who's like, you can do it, just keep going, like get to the end of get to the end of your book. I think that so many people start stressing about if their book is good before they've finished it, and like start worrying about the marketing and the all of these other big things before they even have reached the end. And so for me, it's all about like get to the end one step at a time. We're not firefighters, like there's no emergency. Like it's okay to take your time and just do a little bit as you can instead of trying to feel like you have to do everything all at once.
Which is amazing advice. And Allie actually had to remind me very recently that most people don't write multiple books a year. It's okay to go slow.
Yeah.
I'm telling myself that too. But also, yeah, Allie's right in that my advice is usually a little more gruff in that this is the nice version of it. There are a lot of free resources out there, and you should definitely look at them. And you should wonder, if someone is selling a get rich quick program on how to write a book and how to sell and how to, make $100,000 in your first year, you should really wonder why that person is trying to sell that to you.
Mm.
Careful where the information is coming from.
Yeah, be wary of advice. Be wary of anybody saying you have to do anything.
If you want to make $1 million, you have to buy their thing. Don't buy their thing.
Run the other way.
Yeah.
That's so true, and I feel like that has become more popular recently.
Yeah, I think with, the way that social media is now really prevalent in the publishing industry as a whole, I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for people to take advantage of newer authors or aspiring authors or people who are, wanting to follow a dream and not knowing where to start. There are a lot of free resources out there. Allie has a ton of really amazing resources on their website.
And then you have a lot of people who are just outright trying to scam you. And then you have other people who have this kind of like, I call it the 6-week thing from when I used to work as like a volunteer manager at a wildlife sanctuary. Like people come in and when they're new, they're just learning and appreciating any advice and help and stuff. And then they get to being there about like 6 weeks and all of a sudden they think they know everything and they've had years of experience and they want to tell the newer volunteers what to do, and they are the most hazardous group of people because they've learned just enough to think that they know everything and are very confident and very loud about it. And I think that you see that in absolutely every industry, like every kind of job you possibly have, there's this group of people who are just kind of like loud and usually wrong, but are pretty new still and just want to tell everybody how to do everything. And I think just like be aware that like they're probably not coming from a bad place, but like that eagerness and confidence isn't necessarily accuracy. In fact, there's like, I forget what it's called, but they're antithetical to each other. So like the more confident you are about something, the less likely you are to be right about it. And the people who feel very not confident in their knowledge about something tend to be people who are very knowledgeable in it. So just keep that in mind when seeing people giving authoring advice.
This is so true. I I've never really thought of it like that before, but it does. Some people do just have a certain vibe, and you're like, oh, they've been around the block, and it's like, no, I've been here for like a month. I feel like when I first started, it was like that mad dash. Like I saw all these people getting all these books out so fast, so many a year, and it's really not effective, because you get burned out, and it just doesn't. It's not. Can't think of the word, but it's just not efficient. It just you can't keep on going like that, and I feel like your craft suffers for it, and like your story, and you can't get as deep as you would like to in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, like, there's a sweet spot of like, if I go too slow, I won't do anything. Like, if I cannot take 3 years on a book, that would just break me. But it's like every person has a pace that is right for them to produce a good quality book. And I think that we're all kind of taught to want to push that further than it should go. And so, like for me right now, in the act of, I've been trying to slow down over the last year and writing less and in fewer hours, I'm actually producing more because I'm less stressed out about it and I'm enjoying it more and I'm having more playful kind of inflow writing. So that's great. But like, I think that, everybody has a different pace that they've got to like just feel confident in, and don't try and match your pace with somebody else's. I think that's the biggest thing. And you do see people who are going way faster than their capacity, and it will burn them out for sure. So, if it takes you 5 years to write a book, or if it takes you 5 months to write a book, or 5 weeks to write a book, like whatever it takes is the right amount for you. And I think the hardest thing about being an author is knowing when it's done and when it's ready to let go to an editor or someone else, because we can get caught in a cycle of just sitting on a book even when it's done, and almost making it worse sometimes because we just keep tweaking it to the point where it's not like good anymore. So yeah.
And I think we've all heard of those people who are like, oh, I write a book a month and I publish a book a month. And that's wonderful for those people. But often, like people who say, well, I have a friend who does that. They write and publish a book a month and it works for them. And that's fantastic. Let it work for them. It could be that your project is taking longer. Like, I definitely feel that there are some times where I zip through projects and it's like I blink and it's done. And then there's, times like this year where it feels like it's really taking forever to write my current work in progress. But it's really, you have to let your projects tell you how long they're going to take. Because, last year I wrote and published 7 short novellas and 2 special editions and things. And this year it's been a much slower process. But, whether it's burnout or whether it's just that these projects need extra love and attention, you just have to go with the flow. And I think that's something that both Allie and I talk about a lot is you have to go with the flow. You have to learn how to pivot. If something doesn't work, you have to maneuver and you have to persist, because that's what is the most important thing in this industry. If you're wanting to be here in 5 years, you have to just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, I think like it really is like a sort of last man standing sort of game too. Like the people who are around in 20 years are the ones who have just kind of weathered through ups and downs in their careers and have figured out like a speed of writing that works for them. But also they understand that kind of 80-20 principle that like 20% of your books are going to be 80% of your income. And like knowing that not every book's going to be the big hit and some are going to not do as much as others. And if you let the one that doesn't do as much kind of break you or make you feel like you have to go faster till you burn out or whatever, you're not going to be around to have the next success. So it's all about that kind of like pacing and longevity and kind of almost treating your creativity and your writing process like an athlete in some ways, where you're really like focused on how can you take care of your craft in a way so that you can keep showing up year after year and not just kind of getting burnt out after the first year or two.
I feel like a sponge just soaking up all of your guys' advice. It's so good. It's so well said.
Which is so funny because the other night we were talking about this and neither one of us could really come up with advice. For like quick advice. I don't know. I don't have any quick advice.
Yeah, it's true.
No, it's good. I love it. It's really, and it's honest. I don't know, I would rather hear honest advice. You know what I mean?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like advice that's like everyone can do everything and you're all going to be hugely successful and do all these, and it's like it's great and aspirational, but I think more like for me it's always been about like if you're more in love with the act of writing than you are a book's reception out in the world, you'll always be an author. Like you'll always be able to keep coming back and putting out more books and finding a way forward. But people don't like that like advice as much. They want the flashy, quick hacks and all of those things instead of like, let's view authoring as like a verb instead of like a noun.
I read something once that it said there are storytellers and there are writers. And the storytellers are the ones that will survive, which reminds me of what you just said.
Yes, it's so true.
What has indie publishing been like for both of you? And for you, Allie, how has it been different from trad publishing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful that I always knew I wanted to start off indie and that my goal was to do a little bit of both because I wanted to kind of figure it out all the details of the industry and know how to do it on my own before working with a publisher because I'd better be able to advocate for myself, but also like I would know the industry well enough to figure out what was expected of me and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like I had a pretty like wild experience with my first two books. I really just was kind of got hit by the lucky stick and was in the right place at the right time with the right book. And so I kind of thought my first few books would be kind of just an experiment to see, like dipping my toe in the water and, maybe shouting into the void and maybe a few people would read them and like that would be great. And then I'd learn from that and continue to grow. And I had a 5-year plan to get my pen name earning a full-time income for me. And then with the success of my first series and then that getting picked up trad, I immediately pivoted and started another pen name, another indie pen name, because I was like, well, I still need to do the 5-year plan. I'll just do it over here with another pen name and that one can slowly grow. And it's kind of followed the planned trajectory a little bit more than my first one. But yeah, for me, it's like there's pros and cons to both indie publishing and traditional publishing. And I think you'll find even most indie authors kind of dabble in some sort of like sub-rights and things like that, sales and stuff. So yeah, like we're all kind of hybrid to some degree. But yeah, I think it's for me like it's kind of nice because traditional publishing has a large, wide reach and indie has an intimacy. And for me, like my marketing is kind of all about community and it's all about people and it's all about like connections. Like I'm a very feelings based person. So I like the kind of intimacy of indie marketing, but then I obviously like benefit from like the traditional reach as well. So I kind of like doing a little bit of both, like finding readers kind of more broadly and then bringing them into a more kind of community with me through my indie writing.
My kind of experience with indie publishing has been more traditional in the sense that it takes a while. It really does take persistence. It really does take luck. I think a lot of indies are reluctant to say that they got lucky with the algorithm or the right reviewer who got them more attention. I've definitely gotten very lucky in that, sure, the ideas are there, the aesthetics are there. Specifically talking about like my special editions, which have really helped my career this past, I don't know, 8 months. It hit the algorithm just right. And very often I get people yelling at me that like it's not just the algorithm, you're doing it, you're doing the thing. And I am doing the thing, but there's like a little voice inside of me that's like, don't forget to tell them that it was lucky. It was a lucky shot. Yeah, you keep putting yourself out there, and eventually, if you're doing all the right things, right? If you're writing good books and you have good aesthetics and you're hitting all the right genre marketing aspects, eventually you're going to get lucky. So that's kind of how I viewed indie publishing is determination, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm very stubborn.
That does help. And I do think, like Ali said, there is an intimacy in indie, and there is a way that you can connect with your authors that you don't so much, or it's harder to achieve through traditional.
Yeah, I think I would love to do some traditional books out, someday and be able to find like a much broader, wider audience that sounds wonderful. I think that there are places that trad, especially like being able to watch Allie's journey, hanging out and being bestie and being in, it feels like, I mean, we've talked about this before, Allie and I. It feels like we care about each other's careers in a different way than most author friends do. Like we've just been there from the very beginning. And I don't necessarily think that their journey is my journey, obviously, but being able to sit with them and go through this process alongside them has been really eye-opening. And I can see the benefits of trad, and I can see the benefits of indie if it's done to the level of success that Allie has gotten and some other really big authors have gotten. So there's good and bad to both, but one of the big benefits of indie is being able to be really present with your readers and being able to connect with them, being able to answer their emails right away or their comments and not feeling like there's a barrier between you and your readers, and being able, and I think specifically Allie would agree with this too, is being able to fix a problem when someone brings it to your attention.
Yes.
That's always nice.
Yeah, I've had some times where, like a book cover has had the wrong number on it and things with trad publishing where like I could have fixed it, I could have just updated the files, but like it can't be done with print runs and the way that traditional publishing is done. And so it's things like that where, if somebody tells me with my indie books there's a typo in there, I can just go in and fix it. It's very easy to do. Whereas with traditional publishing, it's like, don't even tell me. I don't want to know because it's never going to be changed. Like
Hmm.
it's just in there forever now. So yeah, there is an immediacy when when you're an indie, you're every role in your business, or at least at the start, you might start outsourcing some things to like PAs and other people as you grow. But with indie, like you are the marketing team and the publishing team and the like all of the teams. So you are everything. And so it means that you can be more nimble with reader feedback and things.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I'm excited to see how the rest of your guys' co-authoring journey goes and how your individual author journey goes. It's been so great to see both of you grow, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we go?
No, just everybody should go get Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist so that Kate
Yeah.
can move to Australia.
Yeah, go grab up that book, tell all your friends so that we can keep making fantastic books together and potentially like build my little bestie house next to Allie's house so we can have our conjoined decks.
That's the ultimate dream.
Yeah. Just write books in our joined backyard together and have a little co-authoring empire where we travel the world talking about the books we've written together.
Oh, that's so great. I love that for you too. Where and when will we be able to find Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist?
So the release date is September 3rd in the US. Well, September 3rd. And you can find it on Amazon. We're also putting it on Ingram. So basically you can find it paperbacks anywhere.
Awesome.
The paperbacks will be like available from all the different online stores. And also if you have any like favorite indie bookstores or things, they can order them in through Ingram as well. So if you have a place like a local library or something that you want to have a copy of Pumpkin Spice, you can ask them to order it in through Ingram. And the ebooks will be on KU, so they'll be on Amazon. And we also have an audiobook in the works that will be coming just as soon as it's done, but like it can take a while to show up on Audible. So that will be coming soon. And there's also, I don't know, Kate, are we saying the other thing?
Let's go for it.
And we also have some really gorgeous special editions being printed that have
Ooh.
like these gorgeous edges and foil covers. The pages are all these gorgeous like burnt orange pages. Yeah, they're really, really beautiful. So those will be available closer to Halloween. But yeah, we're really excited.
That's amazing. And I didn't know about the audiobook. I'm so excited about that.
We have kind of like kept that one under the radar because it does take a little bit longer and we don't have like an exact date of when Audible or places like Spotify or Chirp or Libby will be able to like put it up. So it is coming, but we don't want to like promise a date just yet.
We can say it will be duet narration. And yeah, we're really excited.
Very excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining me, and I look forward to reading Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course.